Welcome. I hope everyone are staying at home and are safe. I have a small request is that to watch these videos regularly so that this will help you to understand much better once the offline classes begins, right? So this will be the last video for this chapter, that is sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Okay, so let's see a few more points that what we have missed in the previous video, okay, about the seeds as well as fruits, and then okay, we'll continue with the apomixes and polyembryonic. Okay, so in the last video I told about the fruits which are of two types, the false fruits and true fruits. The false fruits, where we see the parts of the flower like thalamus will uh, help in formation of the fruit, whereas in case of true fruits, okay, no parts of the flower are involved in the formation of fruit except the ovary. So which I mean that ovary will form the fruit in case of true fruits, like the true fruits, like examples you can take watermelons, okay, lemons also you can take, and then mangoes, etc., are some examples for these true fruits, right? And for the false fruits also I have mentioned some examples like these strawberries and apples, right? So in this case, as I mentioned that the strawberries and apple, the thalamus contributes, okay, in the formation of, ovary, right? The strawberries and apples will contribute in the formation of ovary, right? So those are called the false fruits. Of course, in case of these strawberries, okay, in the textbook they have mentioned, right, small parts on the top, right, small structures you may see on the top, and they have mentioned that these as the achenes, right? So these achenes are nothing but ovaries with the ovules, right? So they are dried, in fact. So here in this case, the achenes are ovaries with the ovules. So all these are that achenes. Now, whatever that part you see in this case, right, is the thalamus that modified to form the fruit. So this is, okay, where the thalamus modified to form fruit, right? So that's about in case of the false fruits, right? So now let's see about some information on seeds too, right? So here, right, we understood that the seeds in case of dicots will be having two cotyledons, and in case of monocots you will be having only one functional cotyledon. Okay, so here let's see in case of a seed in a dicot. So when you open, so you will find two cotyledons, and you may see a structure somewhat, okay, like this. So these two are cotyledons. So these are cotyledons, right? And of course, this is the embryo, okay? And if you see here, this part will be called the epicotyle, and this part it's called hypocotyle, right? Right, so this tip is the plumule, so which will be developing into the shoot, okay, upon germination, and this is the radicle. So this is how we see in case of a dicot seed, the structure, right? Now when coming to monocot, so for this monocot I'm going to take right? Example of maize. So let's look at, in case of a maize seed, so you will find somewhat like this. Okay, so this is a aileron layer. So this aileron layer will be present around the endosperm. Okay, so this whatever you see here is the endosperm, and this one is a aileron layer, so which is in fact a protein layer, right? And this aileron layer will be also diploid in condition along with this endosperm, which is also diploid. And right, so below this you will find the structure of right, of course, that includes the coleoptile, coleorhiza, and so here this is the part. Okay, so here in this case, this part what you see is the coleoptile. Here is the coleoptile, and below that you will find the plumule. Okay, and in this case here it is radical, and in this case it is the coleorhiza. So that's the coleorhiza. Okay, and this one which covers all over is the pericard. So this is the maize seed. So it's a monocot seed. So it's a monocot seed. So this is the structure of the seed in case of monocot. Okay, of course a few more here, whatever, see, only one cotyledon is present in case of monocot. So this is called the scutellum. We know that only that functional cotyledon is called scutellum. So the other cotyledon is not functional, and we have seen that's called epiblast, right? So this is about a dicot seed and a monocot seed. Right, so if you want, you can take examples for this dicot seed too. So you can see in case of okay, peas, you will find so the peas are dicot. Okay, so in that case, dicot plants. So you will find right, so such structure in those plants. So you will find two cotyledons. Okay, in this case, okay, only one cotyledon. So this scutellum is what I say the functional cotyledon. Fine, right? So now let's look at what are the advantages of these seeds to angiosperm plants. So there are various advantages. So let's look at advantages of seeds in angiosperms. Right. So here we know that these whatever the reproductive processes that include pollination and fertilization. Okay. So this pollination and fertilization. In case of lower group of plants, right? So this process of fertilization will depend on water. But when coming to these angiospermic plants, we see that these reproductive processes that include pollination and fertilization do not require water. Okay, so they do not require water. Also, I call as independent of water. So these processes are independent of water, and so is the seed. So we have studied that the seed has only 10 to 15% of moisture, okay, by mass, of moisture by mass. So you can see that the moisture content of the seed is very much reduced, almost to 90% it is reduced, and only the amount of water content present in a seed is only 10 to 15%, right? And then uh, the next one is that the seeds can help, okay, the dispersal to new habitats. So seeds, okay, disperse to new habitats, okay, so new locations. So they will be, once the seeds are formed, they will be carried by, okay, wind, or maybe carried by water, or maybe carried by animals to different locations. And when they fall on a suitable location, so the suitable location which will be having adequate, water, and then the temperature condition should be favorable, okay, pH, and like this many other factors, if they are all favorable, then the seed will germinate and give rise to new plantlets that will grow, right? Now so one thing is that, okay, so one advantage is that the formation of the seed, which requires in fact the water content less, and the seeds will help, okay, in getting dispersed to different habitats, right? So where the species will be in fact carried to different locations. So I can say help species to colonize in different locations or different areas, right? So that's the meaning of seeds, can disperse to new habitats, and these seeds will be having, okay, sufficient food reserves, okay. So here these young seedlings which are formed, okay, from the seeds, until the plant starts, so new leaves are formed, and then those leaves starts the process of photosynthesis, okay. Up to then, whatever the nourishment required, so all that is present within the seed. So we know that the seeds are covered by, okay, protective, right, seed coat. So the seed coat is protective, the seed coat is protective in function. It's protective in function, okay. And the seed will contain the reserve food materials. So it also contains reserve food materials. So these reserve food materials are stored in endosperm, okay, or they are also stored in case of cotyledons. So in some plants you will see that the endosperm stores that food materials, and that food materials will help in the process of the germination, okay, and will be used as nutrition, okay, until the process of photosynthesis begins, okay. And in some case we will see the cotyledons that store these food materials, right? So I can give some examples in this case. So this endosperm can form a major storage, okay, organ. So I just mentioned here, so endosperm can be a major storage organ, right? So this we can see in case of cereals. Example, in case of cereals like rice, wheat, okay, so rice, wheat, etc. And cotyledons will be forming the major storage organ. So that we can see in case of legume plants. So in case of legume plants, the cotyledons form the major storage organ. So they store the reserve food materials, and these reserve food materials will be used by the seed during the process of germination. Okay, so until the plant is able to start the process of photosynthesis, so this nutrition will be sufficiently help the plant or the young seedling, right, to develop all the organs that will help finally to start the process of photosynthesis, right. So next we see that the seeds are the basis of our agriculture, right, and we use these seeds to raise new crops, and here the processes like the dehydration and dormancy, okay, of these seeds is very much important for their storage. Okay, so seeds are basis of agriculture, right, and the process of dehydration, okay, so that making it with the less amount of water, okay, or removing the water is what we call the dehydration, and dormancy. So dormancy, we know it is a state of inactivity. So how long the seed will be in the dormant condition, that is also important. So the dehydration and dormancy are very much important for storage of seeds. Okay, so important for storage of seeds. So if it is not the case, then say suppose some seeds are not able to show this dormancy, means the period of inactivity for a longer time, so you cannot store the seeds for a long time. Of course, we can use artificial methods, okay, in case of seeds that have less dormancy, okay, and store them for a very long period of times, right. So this dehydration and dormancy are important for storage of seeds, right. So now that's about these advantages of seeds in angiosperms. Now let's see the seed viability. So which means that how long the seeds will be, okay, in a state of activity, I mean active, which means the seed is able to germinate. So after the seed released, okay, so how much time it requires to germinate, and it will be in the state of okay, active. So that's what we call it seed viability. So when we see the seed viability in a few species, right, in a few species, the seed viability is lost within few months. So it's lost within few months. Okay, right. So within few months the seeds will not be able to germinate, so they become completely inactive, and you cannot develop new plants from these seeds, which means they are dead, right. So in few species the seeds will be active only for, okay, a short number of months, but in case of large number of species, okay, in large number of species, the seed viability, okay, will be for several years, means the seeds will be, okay, active, or they can be germinated, okay, in fact anytime, for of course, and they will remain, okay, in that state, means they are not dead, they are active, and if you use those seeds you can produce young seedlings from those seeds. So in that case, I say that those seeds have a longer period of seed viability. Now in this case where I said that the seed viability will be for several years, so let's see few examples in this case, okay, where the seed remains active for a very long time. So here the oldest seed, that we found is the seed of a plant called lupine. So that's a plant called lupine, and its scientific name is Lupinus arcticus. Is the scientific name of that plant called lupine, and this was actually excavated from Arctic tundra region. So it was excavated from Arctic tundra region. So tundra region, we know, is a region that is usually covered by snow all the time, right? So from that Arctic tundra region, so they obtained a seed which actually belongs to a plant called a lupine, whose scientific name is Lupinus arcticus. Okay, and the seeds of this plant germinated after 10,000 years. So seeds of this plant germinated after 10,000 years. So we can say that the seeds of this lupine are the one who have the longest seed viability. Okay, so where they were, okay, in they show this seed viability, means they are in the state of activity for a period of 10,000 years, and even after 10,000 years they were able to, right, germinate. So you can collect seeds of some plants and keep them for, okay, from few days to few months, and then you sow them in the soil and then see that how many of those seeds which you have collected are able to germinate and how many of them are not. So definitely some of the seeds what you have collected may not germinate because they have lost the seed viability, and some will germinate because still they retain the seed viability. So this is one example where we have seen that the seeds can stay for a very long time, right? Next, one more example is that, okay, a seed that is 2000 years old belonging to, so a seed 2000 years old, so it belongs to a plant called date palm. It belongs to, okay, a plant called date palm, okay, whose scientific name is Phoenix dactylifera. So Phoenix dactylifera is the scientific name of this right, date palm, and the seeds are actually, right, obtained, okay, from the archaeological site. So during the excavation process, okay, they came to find these seeds which belong to this date palm, okay, when there was an archaeological excavation going on at King Harold's palace. So these seeds obtained during excavation at King's Harold's palace. So they were obtained during, okay, King's Harold palace, and this King's Harold palace was near, okay, Dead Sea. So near Dead Sea, right? And these seeds which they obtained from this location, they germinated, okay, after 2000 years, okay, and in this case these germinated after, right, 10,000 years, right? So in this case, as I mentioned here, that the seeds of this lupine plant, they germinated after 10,000 years, whereas the seeds of this Phoenix dactylifera, they germinated after 2000 years. So with this we understand clearly that the seed viability can last from few months to, okay, several thousand years, okay, right? So where we seen in this case 10,000 years, and in this case, okay, 2000 years. Now we see that in case of some plants, right, they produce, of course, fruits that contain, okay, only one seed, or in some cases there may be, okay, two seeds or four seeds, or there may be in some case many seeds, right? So like we see, there are thousands of tiny seeds, thousands of tiny seeds are present, okay, embedded in the fruit in case of some species. Okay, so thousands of tiny seeds, okay, are present in the fruit. So in case of some species, like for example, okay, orchids. So in case of these orchid plants, right, they produce thousands of tiny seeds which are present inside the fruit, right? And even in case of parasitic plants like oro bank and striga, so these two are parasitic plants. So even in these parasitic plants, we see that they produce thousands of tiny seeds. Okay, right. So as I told that some fruits will have only one seed, in some there may be two seeds, in some four, or okay, it may go on. In some cases, you will find, okay, thousands of minute seeds present inside the fruit, like in those cases of orchids, orobank, and striga. Right, so that's all about seeds. Now let's see another concept called apomixes and also polyembryony. So let's see apomixes and polyembryony. So first let's look at these apomixes. Right, so apomixes, how do we define it? So it is simply the production of seeds without fertilization. Production of seeds without fertilization is what we call apomixes. Of course, in our earlier, okay, sessions we have studied that the seed is the product of sexual reproduction. Okay, so seed is the product of sexual reproduction. So for this there is exception. So right, not always the seed is produced during the process of sexual reproduction, but in certain conditions you will see that the seeds can be produced even, okay, without fertilization. Okay, so of course we know that if fertilization doesn't take place, we cannot call it sexual reproduction. We have to call this as a form of asexual reproduction. Of course it's a asexual reproduction because it doesn't involve the process of fertilization, right? So I said that seed is the product of sexual reproduction. Of course that's a fact, and there are exceptions for this statement, that in some cases we get seeds, okay, without fertilization, and that, okay, is a type under asexual reproduction. Of course, one more point we have studied, that fruits, okay, the production of fruits without fertilization. So production of fruits without fertilization. So production of fruits without fertilization is a process what we call it parthenocarpy. Okay, and the fruits what we obtained in that process, we call it parthenocarpic fruits, right? So this is different. If the fruit is produced without fertilization, then the condition becomes parthenocarpy, whereas if the seeds are produced without fertilization, the condition becomes apomixes. So you will see this apomixes right in the members of example. So in members of a family Asteraceae, in the members of family Asteraceae, and also you will see in case of grasses. So in them you will find such phenomenon, what we call it apomixes, right? So in simple words I can say that this apomixes mimics sexual reproduction. So it mimics, okay, sexual reproduction, but as I told, it's not at all, of course I said it's a mimic, it mimics sexual reproduction, and it's obviously the form of asexual reproduction. So the question comes that, okay, how the apomixis arises. So this apomixis can arise, apomixis can arise when an egg cell is formed without reduction division. So when egg cell is formed without, okay, reduction division. So we know that the reduction division is nothing but meiosis. So without meiosis, okay, if we see the formation of egg cell, so in this case the egg cell which is formed will be diploid, right? So because we know that the egg cells will form from a diploid cell, so the diploid cell will undergo the process of meiosis and finally results in the formation of this egg cell. Now if it doesn't undergo the meiosis, then it results in egg cell that is diploid in condition. So say here is the egg mother cell. So this egg mother cell will be diploid in condition, and it did not undergo meiosis, right? And as a result, it straight away converted to form egg cell. So in this case, this is 2n, right? Now this egg cell will develop in fact into, right, the embryo, so which will be also in fact 2n. So in this case, whatever that seeds we obtain from the process of apomixis, so seeds obtained from apomixis are called apomictic seeds. So they are called apomictic seeds, right? And these apomictic seeds are directly obtained from a diploid egg cell. Okay, so they are formed from diploid egg cell that did not undergo reduction division. Right. So this is a small concept, what we call it apomixis. So which is the production of seeds without fertilization, and is a form of asexual reproduction, and seen in the members of the family like castraceous and grasses. And this apomixis, okay, mimics the sexual reproduction. Okay, so it mimics sexual reproduction, and this can arise when an egg cell is formed without reduction division. So where, which I have shown you there, the egg mother cell without meiosis will directly or can develop into a seed, and those seeds are called apomictic seeds. Right. So here I'll just mention no meiosis and without fertilization. Okay, right, I hope that part is clear. Now let's see about polyembryonic. So first let's see how this polyembryony is defined. So this is presence of more than one embryo, presence of more than one embryo in a seed. So presence of more than one embryo in a seed is the condition what we call polyembryony. So now let's see how this polyembryony arises. So we know this is the embryo sac, and this embryo sac is embedded in the nucellular tissue, and as a result you can see the nucellular tissue will surround the embryo sac. So these are all the cells of nucellus. I hope you remember the ploidy of nucellus cells. So the ploidy of nucellus cells is diploid. Okay, so all these are diploid cells that surround. Of course, embryo sac will be the haploid, okay, containing these antipodals, okay, over here, which are haploid. And so the egg cell here we have is egg cell. This is also, okay, haploid, and these are antipodal cells which are also haploid. Of course, I'm not drawing the other structures, so right. So these are all the cells of nucellus, and these are all diploid. So these cells of the nucellus will divide, and as a result they protrude into the embryo sac. So they enter into the embryo sac. You can see that the cells have entered into this embryo sac, right? And this is the cell of the nucellus which entered into the embryo sac, right? And this cell of the nucellus will form into another embryo. So of course the egg cell will form, okay, one embryo, and this is going to form another embryo, or whatever other number of cells if they enter, okay, they can also develop into embryos. So that's what I mentioned. Presence of more than one embryo in a seed is a condition, we call it polyembryony. Right, so this is the cell of nucellus, and it develops into right, embryo. Right, of course the egg cell after fertilization this will also develop into embryo. So you can see there are more than one embryo inside the seed, right? So that condition we call it polyembryonic, and we can see this polyembryony in plants like citrus, in mango, etc., right? You will find this condition called polyembryony, right? So now let's see another small concept related to, in fact, apomixes. So here we see that the hybrid crop varieties are to be produced every year. So they need to be produced every year, and the farmer have to purchase them every year. Okay, and these hybrid crop varieties are costly. So the farmer have to pay, okay, huge sums, okay, to purchase these seeds. So the question is that, okay, what is the use and why they are so costly? Because right, they are going to give you a very good yield. So these hybrid crop varieties give, right, a very good yield, right? So hence the farmers are behind these hybrid crop varieties. And in our previous videos we studied that how we are going to produce these hybrid varieties. Okay, so we need to choose the parents with the desirable characters, and we will go with the artificial hybridization, where manually we will transfer the pollen of one plant, okay, to the stigma of another plant, and see that the offspring produced by these crosses have the desirable characters. If it is the case, then that is a hybrid crop variety, and they are going to, you know what you say, sell those seeds in the market, which are costly, right? So the question here is that we need to produce these hybrid crop varieties every year, and why we need to produce those crop varieties, hybrid crop varieties every year. Say, see here, I have produced, okay, some plants. So here these are hybrid crop varieties, okay, which I have of course those seeds I have purchased and then I have sown in the agricultural land and I have grown them, right? Now the question is that can I use the seeds of these plants? So here I'm going to obtain the seeds, okay, seeds of these hybrid varieties. So can I use these seeds of the hybrid varieties to raise the next generation, so that I don't need to buy the seeds, hybrid seeds again? Okay, so the question, okay, for this question the answer is no. So you cannot use these okay, seeds of the hybrid varieties, because you did not produce these seeds by the process of artificial hybridization. In fact, they are naturally produced. So when these hybrid crop varieties grow and start producing flowers, okay, those flowers are pollinated naturally. So we will not come to know that what are the parents of those seeds. And when you take the seeds of these hybrid varieties, right, and again, okay, grow the next generation. So grow the next generation. So when you grow the next generation, right, what you see is that, okay, whatever the characters, okay, so characters of hybrid varieties are not present because they are segregated. So the characters are segregated. Understood? So how these characters are segregated and what is the basis for all that? So slowly we will understand in our coming chapters, like the principles of inheritance and variation, where we need to deal about the genes, how they get segregated, right? So the seeds of these hybrid varieties I cannot use to raise the next generation, because the pollination was natural, okay. As a result, what happened, whatever the seeds which I obtained from these hybrid varieties will not have the same characters as those characters, okay, which are present in the parental hybrid crop varieties, right? So in this case, okay, so I cannot use these seeds. So for that reason, the farmer have to purchase the hybrid crop variety seeds every year. Now what if I make these crop varieties as apomictic varieties? Okay, so if I make these hybrid crop varieties into apomictic, okay, crop varieties. So if I make them into apomictic crop varieties, then we know that the seed will be produced without fertilization. So hence, whatever the characters that are present in these hybrid crop varieties will not be segregated. It means which will not be separated, and these, okay, apomictic crop varieties will produce apomictic seeds, and these apomictic seeds will retain the parental crop, okay, characters. So they will retain the parental crop characters. So none of the parental crop characters will be lost, and these apomictic seeds will be same as that of these hybrid crop varieties, okay. So now scientists are trying to make many of these hybrid crop varieties into apomictic, so that the farmer need not purchase the hybrid seeds every year. So once he purchases that hybrid seeds, okay, so and sows those seeds in the soil, raises the crop, and whatever the seeds obtained from that, okay, generation, he can use those seeds to raise the next generation. So the farmer can purchase only once, okay, for that crop variety. The seeds he need to purchase only once. But at present we are the farmers are actually purchasing the hybrid crop variety seeds every year. Okay, so hence this is an extensive research going on to make this the hybrid crop varieties into apomictic varieties, so that they produce apomictic seeds which will retain the parental, okay, crop characters, and in fact I say the hybrid characters. The hybrid characters will not be lost, right? Fine. So with this, right, we this chapter, sexual reproduction in flowering plants, is completed. Thank you.